of over 100 projects, over 60 countries in the world, and including one with the relief effort in Croatia and Bosnia during the Balkans conflict, also the rehabilitation of rebels in Uganda, youth and service development in the Philippines, and social entrepreneurship program in Brazil and Paraguay. He has also developed numerous presentation and training manuals for schools and communities, organizations on the values of volunteerism, services, works, and development. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our participants, sir. Now, I would like you to take over the program.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So, I'm very glad to be here today and to be part of this program initiated by GPF Nepal. As mentioned, you know, I've been working in the third sector for almost 40 years now, and I've been involved also in a lot of conflict transformation. It's not so good to call, you know, conflict resolution, solving conflict, etc. But the best terminology is conflict transformation. Transformation means changing something from point A to point whatever in a process of transforming a situation. So on my presentation today, there are not going to be exercise. I will give you a PowerPoint presentation. And I will ask also some questions. And I would like, therefore, from you to respond, so we can have a share about certain high points or bullet points that I will present to you today. So let me share my screen. So everybody see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. So what we are going to address today together is the conflict analysis and prevention. Then what is conflict and type of conflict? And then skill and strategies and role of youth to prevent, mediate, or resolve conflicts. So let's go to the first part, is conflict analysis and prevention. First of all, I like to show you a video that in its content is pretty good, and it will highlight several things that we will discuss together.
Massibo, sir, the audio is not audible. Can you please switch on the audio? Share the audio as well of your video. Massibo, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but the video's audio is not audible. You need to share as well the computer sound. Yes, we can hear you, but the video's...
Well, let's try to do differently. I will go directly to the video out of the PowerPoint. So in this way, you can hopefully where is it? I think they cancel it from my, oh no. Can you hear it now?
No, you have to share the audio
Right,
from
but
computer sound. The computer sound. If you check, please check the share screen, and then it says computer sound.
okay, let's try. Can you hear it now?
In up-to-date and locally formed analysis of violence for
Now
people.
it's fine.
Okay, so let's start from beginning.
Analysis of violence for peace builders. Hello, my name is Bryn Higgs. Welcome back to the Peace Building Practitioner. Conflict analysis is the foundation for peace building work. Any responsible conflict intervention must be grounded in up-to-date and locally formed analysis. A good first analysis tool was developed by Johan Galtung. Galtung's triangle can help you see violence more clearly, whether in your local community, national politics, or international conflict. Galtung's triangle helps you to see violence even when it is less obvious and lies below the surface. Peace builders need to appreciate these issues in order to be effective. Galtung identified 3 categories of violence. The first is direct violence, which includes physical and verbal violence. This is the violence we most easily see, often involving a perpetrator and a victim. Violent conflict obviously exhibits extremes of direct violence. We can think of many examples where this is the case. For example, the post-election violence that erupted in Kenya in 2008 between communities of different political allegiance, or the experience of migrants, including children, forced by political systems and economic desperation to take their chances in small inflatable boats, trying to cross the Mediterranean to Europe, many drowning in the process. But violence is not limited to these visible elements. As Galtung points out, there is also structural violence, that is the injustice and inequality built into the structure of a society. It is invisible. It often involves very unequal distribution of power and wealth. Structural violence has clear victims, but often no clear individual perpetrator. Instead, people are harmed or disadvantaged by the way in which the society is organised or structured. It benefits some in society and disadvantages others. Structural violence can be sustained through threats and the use of direct violence. It can also be sustained through misinformation, manipulation, newspapers and media distortion, deception, unjust laws and repression. Efforts to address direct violence without addressing structural violence can often fail. That's because violence is being challenged selectively or incompletely. In the examples I mentioned, structural violence is apparent in various forms. In Kenya, the direct violence between ethnic groups that erupted during the 2008 elections was not an isolated event. Corrupt governmental institutions had been discriminating against some groups while advancing the interests of others for decades. Their behaviour is an example of structural violence. The direct violence that erupted was part of a wider dynamic of structural violence and violent response to it that is understood by Kenyan peace builders. Migrants to Europe are fleeing poverty and powerlessness. They are often the victims of structural systems that keep them poor and powerless. International trade terms, weak or undemocratic governments, dictators propped up by powerful states in their own interests, and so on. The structures of local, national and international governance are deeply unjust to the world's poor. In fleeing the structural violence of these arrangements, many encounter the direct violence of traumatic experiences at sea or even death by drowning. A third type of violence is cultural. Cultural violence, like structural violence, is also usually invisible. It can often arise from a society's cultural, religious or ideological beliefs. It is used to legitimize direct and structural violence. In a community, certain kinds of structural or direct violence can become acceptable or tolerated, in some cases thought to be normal or unavoidable. In our second example, the violence that people suffer, leading to forced migration, fleeing from poverty and war towards Europe, is extreme. This extreme violence is tolerated because of a cultural belief that severe inequality of wealth and power between those inside and outside Europe is either acceptable or unavoidable. Peace builders who do not equip themselves with an understanding of direct, structural and cultural violence are likely to fail. Efforts to address the post-election violence in Kenya that did not understand or made a conscious decision to ignore the structural violence suffered by elements of the population and thus failed to understand the conflict were less likely to be successful in the long term. Likewise, efforts to prevent drowning in the Mediterranean by intercepting inflatable boats and returning migrants to North Africa are not addressing the structural and cultural violence that drives people into the sea. Peace builders need to analyse any conflict before they intervene, and Galtung's triangle is a good first step to doing so. Look out for more conflict analysis clips for peace builders soon on the Peace Building Practitioner.
So, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you have seen on the video, it's extremely important if you want to become a peace builder to really understand the roots and causes of a conflict. There are different forms of conflict as explained on the previous video. So we will try to go a little bit more in depth in that type of analysis, using as reference those 3 points presented by the UNDP. Like today's conflict have mutated into complex systems that are driven by multiple and competing interests. And those conflict dynamics have the potential to generate considerable and lasting turbulence across political, socioeconomic spheres, undermining peace and sustainable development. A deeper understanding of the driver of unrest and conflict and the capacity for peace in an ever-changing world is crucial for identifying and support national capacities in sustaining peace. So on this analysis, let's start with the today conflicts have mutated into complex systems that they are driven by multiple and competitive interests. So to achieve a form of in-depth conflict analysis, what is needed? Does anybody has an idea or an opinion or suggestion or how to achieve in-depth conflict analysis? Does anybody has a comment or a suggestion to put on the floor right now? Anybody? Anybody can give a suggestion or an opinion about how to achieve in-depth conflict analysis? What is needed in order to achieve that? What do you think that is needed?
Yes, sir. I think for that, first we need a mutual cooperation between the people, not from the direct one from the people who have the conflict, maybe from the side one, like a friend with whom we can discuss, with whom may know about that conflict, and we can discuss about that one, and
Okay.
kind of like.
Yeah, in other words, you're talking about engaging the people and
Yes.
knowledge from the people. This is a very, very good point. You will see, we will see this little bit later as well. But to understand the conflicts, this cannot be something that you can do alone as an individual. Individuals alone are not sufficient. But if you want to solve, and first of all, if you want to understand the conflict, you need to study, you need to research. To do so, you need to create a task force that is working as a team. So need to be set this type of working team so they can do research on the key risky sectors within society. What are the weak points within society that are the cause of that specific conflict? So a task force, a working team, a working group need to be formed so they can also understand and strengthen the national capacity for this type of assessment. Also to raise awareness and build skills for conflict-sensitive programming, and set and articulate for the capacity of building an education for peace and on peace. So to have a depth conflict analysis, you need to create a working group, a working team. They can do all these 4 points to have a more clear, broad, and in-depth understanding. If you do not have the understanding of the cause, of the roots, of the basis of a conflict, it will become very complicated, almost impossible to find solutions. So those conflict dynamics have the potential to generate considerable and lasting turbulence across political and social economical spheres. When there is a conflict in society, the impact politically, socially, economically is really big. It's really big. So when these 3 factors are under pressure, under stress because of a conflict, all this will undermine in the possibilities to build and to create and to see sustainable peace and peaceful society. And there will be no more development in that nation. What are the elements that we are talking about? There's this reference here, just to give you an idea. There are fundamental threats that are causing conflict in many parts of the world today. And one fundamental issue is the poverty and marginalized communities. This is a very, very common social problems around the world. Just to give you an example, in the United States of America, the most powerful nation in the world, there are millions and millions and millions of people that are living under the poverty line set by the United Nations within the United States. And the same is true in Europe. In my country of Italy, there are 4.5 million Italians. They don't have enough funds to put food on the table for their families. And then you have extreme poverty in many other parts of the world. And this impact the education of the people, the healthcare of the people and services, and is also impact the extreme situation between the rural communities and the urban communities. And the consequences are the big migration from the rural to the city, to the urbans, to the metropolitan areas. Because people are searching to improve their life. Everybody wants to have a nice life, a happy life, a life with joy for themselves, for their family, for their extended community. So they want to have a quality of life. They want to see improvement. So the idea is, if I go to live in the city, my life will improve. But the reality is, then when we see this mass migration to the cities, what is the outcome? We see the slums in the cities. And those places have become places of real conflict, social conflicts, and crime, and violation of all different of rights. They are really violated in these extreme poverties in the metropolitan cities. And you can see, this type of slums everywhere. It's not just, in Southeast Asia or Africa or Latin America. You can see them in Europe. Nobody's talking about, but they are there. Also, you can see in the United States. If you go to Los Angeles, you will be shocked by what you can see in the city of Los Angeles, of hundreds of thousands of people living in the streets, doing all their business in the streets. So, as you see, the root of conflict is a presence in many parts of the world, around the world. Also, we have a famine, we have the necessity of biodiversity, we need to have food security to create a sustainable agriculture system. We have the land degradation, deforestation, therefore we have the hazard in nature, this impact the environment, and we need to have rural resilience. So the rural community need to be strengthened in many parts of the world. We have a lack of basic utilities. We have wastewater, sanitation, energy problems, environmental pollution. As you know, the country that are polluting the most these days around the world is China, India, and Russia. It's not the United States, it's not Europe, but the three nations, they're #1 polluters globally. And to solve this kind of situation, you need to have the so-called circular economy, and we need to diversify the economy, in which you diversify the investments and you create more job opportunities and development for the nation. You cannot put all your sources in 1, 2, or 3 products or line of production. That is all mindset. We need to have the circular relation. We don't need anymore today the linear operation and way of dealing. So one step after the next. So it will take a long time to reach the goal. We need to have the circular relation. You can be at the center, and at the same time, you can reach everybody simultaneously, if you like in social media. But the linear thinking, the pragmatical, systematical, with a clear methodology, with the output and outcomes, etc., these days doesn't really fit anymore the global economy, the global relations. We need to have the circular understanding of relation. We need to set a more circular relation these days. So another threat, a lack of basic utilities. As I said, the result solution is a circular economy. So therefore, we have undeveloped regions and nations with this incredible gap between the urban setting, the rural setting, and we have the effect are the governance and territorial cohesions are necessary. So we need a good governance, to create cooperation between different sectors of society and within the nation. And therefore, all these processes, quality of life, sustainable agriculture systems, reliance in the rural area, circular economy, are reducing the inequalities in our world. So what is interesting to see also is the consequences of crisis in our world these days has been the incredible increase of refugees and migrant people. The migrant phenomena is impacting the world. We have migrants from Asia to Europe, from Africa to Europe, from Central and Latin America to the United States. So the people are moving, not because they like to move, but because of their life circumstances are forcing them to seek better opportunities for the quality of their life. Consequences, the migration has increased dramatically in the last few years, reaching incredible levels in the last 10 to 15 years. So, a deeper understanding of the drivers of unrest and conflict and the capacity for peace in an ever-changing world is crucial for identifying support national capacity in sustaining peace. So, to make a change, you need to be what? Anybody has a suggestion? What you need to be as a person in order to start a positive change? What you need to know?
Change maker.
Say it again. Anybody has some ideas? To make a change, you need to be what?
We must be positive.
Good. Anybody else?
So we need to take the first step.
So need to be proactive. Anybody else?
Mutual cooperation.
Cooperating, okay, collective effort. Anybody else?
Take the first step.
Okay. Anything else?
Ignite others to take action.
Okay. Anything more?
Innovative.
Innovative, good. Okay, so you need to be, informed. To make a change, you need to be informed. You need to know. So you need to study. You need to do research. You need to be informed, to be top person on information regarding the area in which you want to establish a change. You need to be engaged. You really need to be engaged. You know, many people, they try to solve problem from their laptop or virtually or with, conferences or whatever. This is okay, it's one step, but really to make a change, you need to be engaged. You need to be there. And you need to have a result because you are going to face a lot of challenge, a lot of war, a lot of blocks. So your will, your desire to succeed need to be very, very strong. Your determination is fundamental. And you need to be local. You know, many people say, I like to change the world peace. That is, it's really big. World peace, to achieve peace is the most difficult task that anybody can take in his life. To achieve peace is extremely complicated. To do bad, to do evil is very easy. If you want to build a house, it will take months, if not years. You need the blueprint, you need the planning, you need the workers, you need the architect, you need all the type of human resource, etc., to build a house. To pull down a house, it will take just few hours. It's the same. To build peace is like to build a house. It requires time, a planning, a blueprint, an idea, a plan, a teamwork, investment, funds, etc. But to destroy it is very easy, very easy. Then you need to be dynamic. You need to be dynamic in your efforts. So you need to be engaged in dynamics. You need to have determination, resilience, and then you need to be local. You need to be informed. You need to be able to respond to the needs. Because somebody has in his own mind, his own idea about what peace should be. But his idea or his position will not respond to the real needs of the people. So you need to respond to the needs. And you need to be a connector. You need to build the capacity to connect people, to connect institutions, to connect the private sector, to connect sponsors, patrons, entities, organizations. You need to be a connector. To be a connector, you need to be informed, you need to be engaged, you need to have resilience, you need to be local, you have to be dynamic, and you need to be able to respond to the needs. Then you can be a connector. And then you need to have ideal. You need to be an idealist. You need to dream big. You need to have a wonderful, positive vision about people and about the future. You need to give hope to others. If you don't have hope in yourself, you cannot give hope to others. In order to have hope, you need to have wonderful ideas, wonderful dreams that you want to achieve in your life. You need to have ideals. You need to have values. And then you need to be very practical. You need to be able to put in practice your ideas in a practical way. And then you need to have courage. Sometimes to do the right thing requires courage. You need to have the courage to face challenge and to fight for what is right. You need to have a lot of courage. It means sometimes you need to compromise, but you cannot compromise your ideal. You cannot compromise your values. Compromise sometimes is necessary to move forward in a certain direction, but need to be a positive type of approach, not a negative one in order to protect a self-interest or an ego or personal position. In order to overcome those challenges, you need to have courage. And you need to be very objective and honest and transparent to your ideal. So to achieve sustainable peace or to initiate this type of process to achieve sustainable peace, you need to set project programs or initiatives that are transversal, that are touching the three fundamental components of our society. In other words, you need to engage the public sector, mean the political infrastructure, means the government agency, government institutions, or intergovernmental agencies, like the United Nations agencies. You know, the UNESCO, UNICEF, etc. They are not NGOs, they are intergovernmental agencies. The leaders of those agencies are always political or former political leaders, and they are connected to the state, the Minister of Health, of Education, and on, because they receive the funding from the government, and they depend on government policy. So You need to be connected also with the political infrastructure. And then you need to have the support of the private sector, means finances. You need to have sponsor. It can be your local store in your neighborhood, or a big business corporation, or a mass of individual supporters and partners that they can finance your initiative because they believe in what you do, in what you propose. So they will sponsor you. And then you need to engage all the elements of the civil society. It means the religious leadership. They can be at temples, they can be the churches, depending which part of the world somebody will operate. You need to involve the community-based organizations, the NGOs, the world of academia, means university educators, professors, university students, and opinion leaders, and the media. You need to engage, therefore, the public sector, the private sector, and the civil society sector. When you have these three sectors engaged and linked to your initiative, your action will be very powerful and will have an impact, not a short-term impact only, but we will have a middle and long-term impact, and you will initiate a transformation within the system. But remember, you need to work with a team, with a working group, with a working team, with a task force that is the leading group for this transformation. So let me move this. Another important tool, you need to be very active within the social media platform. All the different social media platforms, you need to be present there. They need to hear your voice, the voice of your working team. You need to present your vision in an also independent way to build more credibility. So what is the response? Mediation. Mediation is the response. So what is the qualification of a mediator? You need to have credibility. If you don't have credibility, you cannot be a mediator. You need to build your credibility. You want to be a peacemaker? Wonderful. But you need to have credibility. How you build your credibility? By building your moral authority. In other words, you need to be engaged, present locally where you live, where you act. You need to help to find the solutions. You need to have your hand dirty with the issues, with the problem. You need to be there, engaged. And at the same time, to be a good mediator, you need to be very objective in your position. You cannot be involved with one side or the other side. You need to be very objective, out of the fight, to be a mediator. If you don't have that position, if you cannot hold that position, you cannot be a mediator. And then you need to be somebody with experience. You build your experience by acting, by doing within your local community as a start. And then you need to have the technical knowledge. You need to build the skill, the expertise through knowledge, research, and study. And you need to have good models as references. When you have references, those will help you to mediate the dialogue and to find better solutions if you already have a pattern or references, models, in what you're trying to solve. So, mediator act as a link between two conflict parties, helping them resolve their disputes in a fair a neutral manner. To solve conflict, to be a peacemaker, a peace-building individuals, you need to be neutral, and that is very difficult to be. It's complicated, especially when there are emotional issues involved in what you're trying to face or deal with. So you need to ensure that everyone's voice is heard. The work they do is vital in helping the two opposite sides reach an amicable agreement. So it's a process of dialogue in which a platform, a base, a floor can be created in which all voices of those involved, from whatever side they are, can be heard. And the mediator needs to mediate that dialogue by remaining neutral. So there are some standard mediation role, like in a divorce case, or a couple's conflict, or the custody battle for children, and issues between landlords and tenants, employment disputes and fight, and then war and peace resolutions. There's extremely complicated, and diplomatic articulations, and peace building actions and programs, project and initiatives. So that like simple day-to-day role that is like meeting people, you need to have capacity of open relation and meeting people constantly. You need to meet people, very active, very engaged in that. You need to be able to ask the right questions to get the information. Information will give you the tool and will give you also power. Because if you have knowledge, you have power. More knowledge you have about a situation, more power you have. Especially if you're engaged, especially if you're present, especially if you are doers. With information and knowledge, very, very powerful. You need to have this capacity to determine the ideal outcome in which each party will be happy. And that's also extremely complicated to achieve. And then you have to work to help one side to see the other side position, to walk on their shoes, to really understand their situation, and therefore help them to open up, to listen with a different mindset. And suggesting workable ways to resolve the problem. This capacity comes out through your experience and reference models and your knowledge. If you cannot achieve any of those points, then you can try to put things in a more writing ways, systematical way, identify point of agreement. If you cannot achieve anything of this point, then you go to and put the whole situation in the hands of somebody else. Like, for example, in a situation of conflict, many times they ask the intervention of the United Nations. And then the United Nations, with these old chambers and council, etc., they declare a military intervention in a specific situation because all the other articulation previously failed. So, in other words, mediation is a key. And many times, when you have new idea, you will face certain situation, and this the pattern of growth. Basically, for any idea, even in the business, is the same. At the beginning, there is like the core group of people that they have a strong determination. They really strongly believe in their ideas, in their ideals, and they work 24/7 to achieve these ideas. So this small core group of people, they give an incredible input, and there is an incredible growth of that ideas on the first stage, because it's a novel idea and people are really dedicated to it. But then there is a critical junction that you will face, because people, they will run out of steam, out of power. And then you reach like a plateau. So in this time, you reach like a plateau. To go to a next level or implementing your idea, you need, beside the early adopters, you need to invite new people, new resources, new energy, different viewpoints. If you have the capacity to embrace that, you will grow again, and then you face from a small group of people, a novel idea, new people coming in, a new incentive, a new energy. You will grow to the level of acceptance of your ideas, of your proposal. But there will be another critical crisis right there. It's called the critical mass, in which you can go with the plateau and then die. You go down. So when you reach a certain level of success, many people, they stop to invest and they live out of their success. And that is the beginning of the end. You will go down. You will not go up. In order to go up, again, you need to invite the secondary adopters. You need to invite, again, new people, new entity, new partners, new resources, new energy. So you will expand your network and your support, and you will go to the top level, in which your idea will become the popular idea, accepted by the general public. When that is achieved, peace is also achieved. So this is the normal growth in order to achieve success, the final outcome. But in order to achieve the popularity of your idea, the success of your ideas, you need to have willing and openly accepting, inviting other people. They may even challenge your original ideas with better ideas, with better perform, with better energy, with better understanding. So the most important thing is that everything can move forward to achieve the goal of sustainable peace. Okay? So the conclusion of this section is that to be successful, you need to be an effective mediator if you want to be a peace builder. You cannot be a peace builder if you are not an effective mediator. So you need to understand and study and research what mediator is all about. Understand how to apply the mediation skills if you want to be a peace builder. Mediator is a key, the capacity to mediate, to solve a conflict. So what is conflict? Now we go to this session. What is a conflict and type of conflict? Okay? Any question at this point? Okay, let's move to the next. So there are many types of conflicts in our world. There is a man versus nature. As you know, man in all history has tried to dominate nature instead of working with nature. They actually is the correct approach. Men try to dominate nature and create a lot of external conflict. Then we have men versus society. So that also external conflict, like the fight for freedom, for example, or karate fight against social or traditions of rules or dogma within a society. Then we have the individual conflict, the conflict within yourself. Those is the first conflict that any human being can discover or face in his life. And then we go to conflict with another person. And then, because we have different character or different viewpoints, or we are struggling with each other, we have conflict right there. So only here on these 4 cartoons, there are so many different conflicts, because with each one of those conflicts, there are many sub-conflicts related to it and many effect out of these first cause conflicts. So there is like a multiple conflict created by this. And then we have task conflict, we have relation conflicts, we have value conflicts. So in other words, what is a conflict is very, very broad way to try to identify a very square box saying, okay, this is a conflict. Yeah, but there are many, 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 many boxes. So my question is, in what is a type of conflict? My question is, there is a positive conflict? Anybody has an idea? There is a positive conflict. If so, if there is a positive conflict, does anybody has an idea of what is a positive conflict? Anybody? Nobody has an idea if there is a positive conflict?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
think.
guess there is a positive conflict. That may be discussion,
In
debate.
context of Nepal, there was a conflict between the Ranas and the normal group of people, which changed the political scenario of Nepal. So I think that was one of the positive conflicts.
Very good. Very good. So there are also positive conflict. This is very important to understand, because generally speaking, people, when they see that terminology, conflict, they always think that is a negative. The conflict is negative, always. That is not true. There are also positive conflicts. There are beneficial conflicts and destructive conflicts. These are two differences: beneficial conflict and destructive conflicts. So within conflict, there is a destructive conflict, violent conflict, and negative conflict. At the same time, there are constructive conflict, cooperative conflict, and positive conflict. So the situation is how to bring a destructive conflict to a constructive conflict. How to bring a violent conflict to non-violent and cooperative outcomes. And how to bring a negative to a positive conflict in order to achieve peace. So we have beneficial and destructive conflicts. The mediator, a peace builder, task is to bring the destructive conflict to become positive in order to build peace. Sometimes in a situation it's difficult to identify clearly which one is the beneficial or the destructive conflict, because there is a conflict. So beneficial or constructive conflict occur when a disagreement evolves into a cooperative exchange of ideas, like somebody just said now. So there was a conflict. Out of that conflict, the outcome finally has been positive. So that exchange created cooperations and it produced a positive result. Constructive conflict resolutions or transformation require both parties to acknowledge and address their emotion privately. This is very important because when there is a conflict, if you don't address the emotion privately in a one-to-one, it becomes extremely complicated to solve it when that explodes with a large audience or large groups. And also when you dialogue one-to-one, a small miracle may happen. I'll give you an example. When I was working for the resolutions of conflict with the guerrilla fighters in Uganda, we did have several meetings with the government officials, the military, the NGO, the social leader, community leaders, local political leaders, with the rebel leaders, their commanders, the vice commanders, and et cetera, on the other side of the table. And then one day, during a coffee break, I did have like one-to-one talks with the leader of those guerrillas. His name was Scipio Kello. He dies now. So I was talking with Scipio Kello in the break, and then we discover that we were born on the same day of the same month of the same year. And he was so surprised. Also, I was quite surprised. But his reaction was somehow out of this world, He just clicked. You never know how a human nature, a person will react, or what will make that person to click in a different direction. You will never know. But what happened is, because of that, he said, you are Scipio Kello in Europe. I am Massimo Trombin in Uganda. Now we can really talk. And then we resumed the discussion and everything started to move forward because the rebel leaders became more human, down on earth, and start to smile at me. And we start to smile and we start to interact, and the atmosphere totally changed. Why? We discuss on one-to-one, something pop up, and the guy clicked. And from that time on, we find the solutions for that conflict. So personal emotion, keep it for yourself, or just one-to-one talk, not in the large group. It doesn't really work well. If you do that, you will create productive conflicts, transformations. People will start really to trust you as a person of stability and reference. So destructive conflict happens when the ego and the emotion, pride, take over. And they really blocked everything. So egos, emotions, pride are really negatives emotions, that they are fueling destructive conflicts. And destructive conflict arises from a lack of communication. Many times, major conflicts, even between individuals or husband and wives, or parents and children, or government and civil society, can be solved by dialogue, by initiating a dialogue. So the mediator has to be very skillful in his dialogue capacity. You need to develop a very good capacity on your dialogue. Dialogue is fundamental. If you don't develop dialogue, it's very complicated. You can have the best idea in the world or the best practical result. But if you cannot external, if you cannot be able to share with the proper dialogue all this, what do you have it for? So dialogue is very, very important, extremely important. So communication is a key factor, both for positive and negative conflict. So dialogue is fundamental. Then culture. Culture should promote healthy developments and prevent conflict. If you live in a culture that promotes conflict, you have to change that culture. If the culture sustains violence, aggression, you cannot find a solution. It's impossible. Because the culture impregnates everything from top to bottom within society. Everybody is linked to is culture of that nation, the culture of that city or that region, the culture of that neighborhood, the culture of that family. Each family has its own culture. So if you don't develop a culture that is a positive, constructive, and you live in a culture that promotes violence, it's very hard. So first of all, you need to change the culture, because culture should promote healthy developments and prevent conflicts. And this goes from the individual to groups to the social pact, means all the elements within that society, they need to work for positive culture. So to change the culture is fundamental work. If you live in a culture of violence, or in a culture they remember violence from the past, so solutions of present conflict many times are rooted within the past, like what happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That conflict exploded because of historical fact of the past. They were not solved. They were like not put with water. They became so hard, there was no way to open the knot anymore. So you had to cut. So war and conflict came all about because of this hard remembrance and memories of the past, conflicts and blood and killing, etc. Ideologically and from a human viewpoint of the past. So we have to solve those knots and change the culture in order to sustain peace and create a society of peace. Peace builder task in this type of field of work is really important. It's fundamental. So is step by step actually process. It will not happen overnight. It will not happen one day for the next. It's a long process. So determination and will and perseverance are key factor for the peace builder, particularly perseverance. You need to persevere if you want to achieve a positive result. Perseverance is a key. You need to persevere. Keep your ideal, persevere, keep your alliances strong and determination strong, and persevere to achieve your goal. What we see in the last few years, something really amazing. If you see from this diagram, in the past, war or a constant factor were just way of life in the past. Were just way of life. What happened in the last period of our human history, there has been an incredible decrease of conflicts worldwide. This conflict that I'm referring to this diagram are conflict between the great powers. They can be empire or superpower nations. They decrease to nothing in the last 20 years. This is amazing. Amazing. Even though people may think that there is more war today, the truth of the matter is not like that. It's not the case. What is true about it also is that in the past there was less number of nations present in our world. There has been an incredible increase of nations be established globally. So we see an increase of nations popping up in our world and a decrease of conflicts within our world. Why? Because the growth and expanding of nations at the same time helped the spreading of democratical principles of democracy. They give more power to people and no more power to individual families like kings or empires, emperor. But the power is becoming more and more spread among the people as the years are passing by. So there has been an increase of nation and decrease of conflicts of powers in our world. So this is a very good news. So there's been a radical decline of state-to-state conflicts in our world. So the tendency is to see more peace in our world, but why we feel there is a lot of conflict, etc., in our world? Because there is actually been an increase of local and regional conflicts. So, as you see here, the colonial or imperial conflict, they totally disappear. Almost conflict between states are almost disappeared. But conflict, civil conflict, with the intervention of state has increased, has been always present with these ups and downs, but in the last 20 years has increased, has been present and constant. And so civil conflicts, they've been always present with some degrees and up down, but they've increased. And in some part of the world, as they've increased dramatically, conflict, the civil conflict and civil conflict with state intervention, particularly in this area of the world, on the southern hemisphere of our world, those conflicts have increased. Why? Because there is a shift of change, of powers, of idea, of management of a state. So there is a period of transition that brings this type of conflict in specific regions of our world. So the conclusion is of this session that there is hope for the future. Actually, the forecast for our future is positive. Mankind is going more and more towards a more sustainable peace globally. A traditional example is Europe. There's been always war in the continental of Europe since 1945. In all its history, there have been war every 20 years, 10 years. Every generation has faced one or two wars within Europe. State to state, empire to power, regional conflict, local conflict, but always war. Since 1945 until today, the only conflict that happened was the conflict in Bosnia. There was a regional and local conflict. So it's more than 70 years that the continent of Europe live in peace with no war. Why? Because the economical developments, the wealth, the quality of life has raised up, and nobody wants to lose that. So we enter in a different phase in our world today of financial and economical war globally, but not war by the bullets, those that drastically decline. Therefore, our future, in my view, is positive concerning the forecast for peace. Now, let's go to this last session. We have a little bit more than half an hour now left. Skill and strategies and the role of youth to prevent, mediate, and resolve conflict. It's very complicated, honestly speaking, to see a role of youth, because it's not a specific role. It's a role that contributes fundamentally in this process. So I will give you a practical experience about this. I'm talking about the work that I personally did also with other organizations, with a working team in East Africa. And I will talk about the city of Isiolo in Kenya. And those are some of the organizations that were involved in that initiative for peace in the city of Isiolo. I worked in Africa. I started in 1990 and I stopped in 2010. So in Kenya, like in other nations, like in Nigeria or Ghana or Liberia, where I work, etc. But I concentrate a lot on my effort in East Africa. In Kenya, I start all these different initiatives, you know, from building a medical center, water services, sport for peace, you know, to give grants and fundraise for malaria, medicines. I built a vocational center together with UNESCO, and the initiative River for Peace, where we cleaned the Nairobi River with the Global Peace Foundation, Youth Center for Karate Education in Mombasa, etc. But I will talk about this one, about the interfaith, the interreligious forum in Isiolo. So like I said, if you want to know, if you want to build credibility, you need to be engaged. So these are some of the photos when I met, you know, with the organization, community-based, government officials, and on, and when I did the service projects with youth, because youth in service projects are very powerful. They are able to mobilize the entire cities, like it happened, for example, in Rome, where we did a service project with youth, 120 youth from all over the world. Even the Pope, it called us to have an audience. So it was a huge impact. There was media coverage in name, et cetera, et cetera. So youth, they have this kind of energy of youth. They bring an incredible impact. So going back to Isiolo, at a certain point in my work there, I was called by an NGO. His name is Chenchemi, and they asked me to work together to find solution for a religious conflict in the city of Isiolo. As you see, Isiolo is located in a very dry, desertic region. This is the photo of the city. And, you know, this is the photo of the Rift Valley that's on the other side of the country. So when they asked me that, I was very intrigued, very interested. I met those people. And I accept their invitation. And I also told them, if I find a solution or an idea for a solution, you will have to provide the money to sponsor the applications of these ideas.
Mommy, please.
And
Please.
they agree. They agree on my suggestion. So I start to study the territory of Isiolo. Isiolo, like I said, is located here. Is like a crossroad between Ethiopia, Ethiopia here, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, etc. And is originally to be forgotten, and the military, they do their exercises in this region. Also to keep an eye on the Islamic terrorists, radical Islamic terrorists from Somalia. So there is a lot of military operation there. And people from Nairobi, they never go to Isiolo. They think it's like going to Mars or to the moon. When I tell to Kenyans they went to Isiolo, they look at me with big eyes, say, "You went to Isiolo?" You know, it's like you don't go there. Why? Because it was, and still it is, an area of conflict. So I did all the research of the characteristics of the territory, the different ethnical and tribal groups, the management of the national and local government, and the religious leadership, etc. And when I was ready, why is it moving? I went to Isiolo. I visited Isiolo several times. And I met the religious leaders and community leaders and opinion leaders of the city. That is this group over here. And in my dialogue with the Muslim leader and the Catholic leader, I discovered something. So that is the Catholic Church, you know, the diocese of the Catholic Church in Isiolo, and that is the mosque of Isiolo, of which we have the imam here and the religious Catholic leaders as well. What I discovered, first of all, this is the city, where basically there is one big street. In one side, it is Muslim community, in the other side, they are mostly Christians. And sometimes, you know, they were fighting and killing each other for other reasons, you know, to control the territory, the rural areas where they can bring their cattle, etc. But they were fighting also religiously. So while talking with the Muslim leaders and Catholic leaders, I found out everybody wants to be the number one, the best one. So I said, well, I'm going to use this ego for good. So I went to the Muslim chief of the Muslim school, and I asked him, your students are very good, right? Oh yeah, my school are the best, blah, 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 blah. And he said, we do the best things. And, you know, I did a seminar there. I met with the students, you know, they were dancing, welcoming me, et cetera, et cetera. Then I said to the principal, well, I have a proposition for you. You know, the Catholic, they say the same, that they are the number one. They said, no, no, we are the best. We are the number one. And I said, oh, really? Okay, let me put you to a test. I will donate to your school cattle, like cow, and I will put, I forgot now what they call it, the one with the horn. They do, they produce milk, and then chickens. I will give a donation of animals to your school, and I want your student to take care of those animals. They can use the milk, they can produce cheese also because you already have the system there. They can eat the eggs to integrate their meals. And then I come back between 6 months to 1 year from now and see how they do. And I did the same with the principal of the Catholic school. So I want really to see among your students, your youth, which one worked better in taking care of these animals. And then I will give a prize to the best school and best students out of the result of their investment in taking care of these donations of livestock. What do you think? It's a great idea, I said. We will do it because we are the number one, blah, 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 etc., etc. Same reaction from the principal, from the Catholic side, same reaction. And so I donate those livelihood to them. And then we came back almost 1 year later, and we increased for both community, obviously, because they performed very well, both of them, with a lot of dedication. The only things that disappeared were the chicken, probably because they eat them. But the other one, the cow, they were still alive. So we increased the number, and we give a prize to both the communities. As you see the photos there of the event, the welcoming the school, the officials donating the animals with our officials. But the amazing thing is, what happened here? The old town was present during those ceremonies. And we could see the Christians and the Muslims communities, they came together, celebrating their youth, the youth of their efforts in doing good. Good for themselves, good for the school, good for their community, good for their family. They came together. It was a wonderful moment, a wonderful ceremony. Everybody was happy, was empowered, inspired. And then what happened? After that, when we closed the ceremony, thousands of people with the leading of the youth were the leading force. They were the actor. They were not the spectator. Were on stage. They took the initiatives and they start a march for peace in the city. You can see from this photo, there are so many people walking, there is dust in the air. Thousands of people that just naturally from both sides joined together. And they march, shouting, peace, no fighting, no more. Let's nurture culture of peace. Let's work for the culture of peace. Peace, peace, peace. So this was the outcome of this effort. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So that result came out of our work also. That was done parallel to the initiative within the youth involved in taking care of the animals within the two high schools, from the Muslims and from the Christian schools. In parallel, we organized workshops by the title Nurturing a Culture of Peace. Usually 3 days workshops. Then we start first in the city with the major leaders, and then we multiply in the rural areas for everybody to be part of it. The outcome of this workshop was, together with the Forum for Interreligious Dialogue and Cooperation, with the Chen Cheney, with the Global Peace, RFF, etc., Service of Peace, we initiated the proposal of the Peace Week, in which we start to set up different modules and models with workshop, with a specific task that we want to achieve, for which each workshops, from the different levels, from healthcare to religious dialogues, to find solutions for the conflict, to find solutions for the economical problem within the community. So to involve people of Isiolo about peace, engage the stakeholders in peace-building activities, not only with seminars, in order to establish a continuous progress for peace within that community, and to ensure a continuous vigilance for peace done by the communities with their leaders, and working to eliminate the gaps between tribes, ethnic groups, and group of power within that community. And so we visit communities that were really affected by conflict. And we did projects together with the community, like rebuilding, restoring their schools, restoring their healthcare center, creating meetings within the community. And that program became part of the Peace Week efforts. The Peace Week effort became a formal event that happened every year since we started in 2004. We started to work there in 2002, 2003. And then the Peace Week became the highlight point or developed this cohesion between those communities. So we implement, not simply we promote or we nurture the culture, but we implement the culture of peace. And within the Peace Week, the highlight was the sport competition. So each community created its own football team. There was the Christian team, the Muslim team, and the third team was a mixed team within Christians and Muslim youth together. And then they invite football team from other cities. It became a national event in competition with prizes. So sport became a fantastic tool to promote peace, understanding, and cohesion between people through sport. And it was fantastic. So they got really organized. As you see in the photo, everybody start to buy their own, wares, with the same shirt, the same pants, the same shoes. They create a sport club, etc., etc. So basically, what happened is that the religious conflict ceased to be there. And cooperation within religious leaders and religious communities was implemented thanks to the youth effort, youth participations, youth activities. And that has been going on for many, many years. The conflict that are still present in Isiolo, they are economical conflict, based on economics, and based on lack of investment by the central government and local government. But religiously speaking, the type of intensity of the past concerning conflict is not there anymore. Thank you to youth. The youth, they've been the one open up the door and implementing, and therefore creating and establishing a new culture, a different mindset. They create a new culture for the community. And because Isiolo is and it was very known place of conflict, the impact has been on national level. The influence has been on national level. So nurturing a culture of peace is good, but we have to implement a culture that brings peace to a society. So to maintain peace, Isiolo community had a mission of empowering community initiative through interreligious dialogue. And we achieved that with great success. And the people with the community, they took ownership of it, and they do it by themselves. So there was no more need for international agency, NGOs, to be engaged and to be there. They monitor, and they do it, and they did it by themselves after we initiate the process. So as you see, young people were pivotal, were fundamentals for the success of this story for peace, achieving peace in that community. And this was the final outcome. They also initiate the new process, they became the establishment of the Peace Week in the community. So thank you very much. And I'd like to open the floor now to anybody who has a question. Or comment.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
I have one question about is beneficial conflict and constructive conflict the same?
Say it again, sorry. Hello?
Is beneficial conflict and constructive conflict is same?
Sorry, there was a lot of breaking in your question. I could not understand it.
Okay, I will repeat her question. So
Okay.
she's asking if beneficial conflict and constructive conflict are the same.
Beneficial and
Constructive.
okay, beneficial, constructive conflict is part of what is part of being, beneficial conflict. Is everything that is on the part of positive outcome is constructive and is therefore beneficial. It is one and the same. It's a part of the process of what is a positive conflict. So to be more clear, it's better if you define them negative and positive conflict. So constructive conflict, beneficial conflict is part of what is positive, a positive approach. Okay? Anybody else?
Good evening, sir. I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, what do you think is the true peace is?
What do you think is what?
True peace. What is true peace in your perspective?
Good peace or true peace?
True peace. True.
True peace?
Yeah.
So this is a very vague terminology, because you imply that there is also a false peace when you say true peace. If we have peace, is peace, point, finished. There is no good or false peace. Some politicians, they may manipulate a situation, a contest, referring to a peace, and in reality is not. But when you have real, let's say real peace, everybody can see it, everybody can feel it, and anybody can have the experience of real peace. True peace, or let's say real peace, because true peace implies there is a false peace. But real peace is something tangible. It's not something that a politician or a religious leader or a demagogue may manipulate or instrumentalize for his own interest. That happens when something is very vague, it's not substantial, it's not real. When you have real peace, is really, really substantial, and nobody can debate. You see, we can have a debate when we have different opinion, right? So we can debate our different viewpoints or opinions. But when there is a fact, there is no more debate. When the fact is achieved, is tangible, is visible, is there is no more dialogue. We have to talk about the facts. So when we achieve peace, real peace is a fact. No more debate, no more opinions, no more dialogue. In that terms, we have a fact. So if you want to become a peace builder, you have to produce fact, not opinions. Fact, tangible result. Then you can be a peace builder.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes?
So what do you think this pandemic will increase conflicts around the world or enhance peace?
Okay, the pandemic, I organized several forums and conference on the pandemic, on the response of civil society towards the pandemic. This with the religious leaders, political leaders, NGO leaders, women leaders. What is very interesting to look at it is that this pandemic has been global, has been more intense in several regions of the world, less intense in other regions, but has been a global phenomenon. What this pandemic has pointed out is that our social system is not very strong. The social pact that each nation has established to manage its society is not very strong, it's not sustainable. A tiny virus put everything under stress and under crisis. So the pandemic has hit very hard our social infrastructure globally. So people had to rethink about their priority. The social path, the social system of today is very clear, is not working. It's not working. Actually, has created a lot of problems. And you see the politicians fighting instead of cooperating to find solution for the pandemic. And this is everywhere. Instead of coming together, the opposition, the people in power, they are fighting. They are using the pandemic for political goals. And this is immoral. This is terribly bad governance. Those are real bad people. They are not good people, bad people. And this cross borders internationally. So the pandemic has caused force people to reevaluate their priorities and the system and the way of life. Still today, school, they are opening and they are closing down almost everywhere because of the pandemic. In Europe, the second wave started. They start to close business again. The GDP of most nations hit by the pandemic went down, but not China. China went up. That's very strange. The GDP of China went up. The rest of the world go down, China go up. What's that? So something really weird is going on here. But the truth of the matter is, when you apply the lockdown, small business, they go belly up. They close down. So we have hundreds of thousands of small business, mostly family-run businesses, closing down because of the pandemic. We have millions of workers out of job or on relief programs by governments. We have, I work on trade, international trade. We have so many scams happening because of the pandemic today that is unbelievable. This has brought a lot of mistrust within the business community. So it has made everything more complicated. Also about human relations, everything became more complicated. Social distancing, wearing the mask. You go out, you're afraid if somebody gets closer to you, that you get that disease. At the same time, you have to think about others. So you're wearing the mask, or you wash your hands, or you keep distances. Yes, you have a fear, but also you're forced to think of the well-being of others. So has helped to change the mindset of the people. For example, in Brazil, Brazil never faced a war or a major crisis. This is the first time that all Brazilians, they face the same challenge. And actually in Brazil, this COVID has been called the sickness of the rich, because wealthy people, they've been the first one to get sick. And the most sick people in Brazil are the wealthy people. Now it went down also to the poor areas, but it really hit hard the middle and high class in Brazil. So what will happen now because of the pandemic is the economical outcome. The forecast is negative. So we are going to face incredible financial, economical crisis in many nations. And many millions of people will lose their job. So it will challenge the social economical situation, the status quo of many nations around the world. And if there is not going to be a collective effort by the government, by the private sector, by civil society, together, to come really together to face this crisis, we are going to have conflict in 2021 and 2022. This is for sure. We need a collective effort of forces coming together and identify solutions for the well-being of everybody, not of a single category of individuals, for everybody. So the pandemic also created a new system, like home working, like this virtual conference of today. The inspiration come out of the pandemic because people cannot meet each other face to face. Zoom had really boomed worldwide. So those working on social media, on buying and selling by internet, they make billions of dollars. And there are new ideas. So what I'm saying is, we don't know what are going to be really the positive outcome of this pandemic, but there are going to be positive outcomes. Because human creativity is fantastic. And the capacity of human being to adapt is fantastic. I'll give you an example. Around the world, there have been incredible small number of miscarriage because mothers, they've been home and they went to their pregnancy with the more peaceful situation, less stress, so more children that were born and less miscarriage happened around the world. These are a positive situation in a way. So we don't know what are going to be the positive outcome. We will see, we will study, we will identify them. But surely right now, well, it's very, very sad situation, challenging situation, difficult situation, particularly for those people living in nations like Brazil, where this pandemic is really, really hard and big, really big.
Okay, thank you very much, Massimo sir. There's another question from Saista. She's asking what motivated you to get engaged in Global Peace Foundation and other youth initiatives. And after this, Estela, please give your question. Thank you.
Well, this is a question I receive quite often. You know, I start to get involved in social activity when I was 18 years old. And when I was around 20 years old, I did a lot of work. Then I got involved in resettling the both people of Vietnam in the United Kingdom. At the time, I was located in Bristol. So I was helping the boat people from Vietnam that were escaping the communist regime to be resettled in society. At the time, the United Nations was giving a quota of those refugees to different nations. And since that time, I never stopped. So in my career, I worked with many, many organizations. I worked with a community-based organization, local organization, national and international NGOs. And concerning the Global Peace Foundation, I was involved on the first stage in 2006 when together with our people, especially two people, one from Germany and the other one from Japan, we built up a prototype program in the Philippines. And we involved the NGO Association of the Philippines, the Manila municipality, a lot of people from the private sectors. And we create these events under the guidance of what became the founder of the Global Peace Foundation. And this event was very successful. We involved 30,000 young people for a peace festival, 10,000 young people for a social service action, and 3 days of seminar and conferences for peace and good governance, etc., etc. So from that prototype, we multiplied the same format under the banner of Global Peace Festival Foundation in 2007, 2008, and 2009 around the world. We organized in total about 30 festivals in those 3 years, all over the world. And we touched millions of people with this message for peace by engaging the 3 sectors of society: the public, private, and civil society. And in 2009, GPF was founded with its base in Washington, D.C. And then at the time, I was still working in Africa, in the Middle East, Central Asia, and Europe. And then in 2012, I moved to Brazil. My wife is Brazilian, to build up the foundation in this continental nation. So the motivation to do this is because, first of all, you know, I believe in God. I believe in life after life. I believe that each human being is unique, and each human being in his own capacity and talent has the duty to contribute for good in his life towards others. This is what I strongly believe. I always believe this since I was a child, basically. And by working in this sector, I identify the best tool to express this motivation. You know, working on the social services, social action, etc., is a sector in which you will not become a millionaire. You will not become rich, but you become a trillionaire in your conscience, in your soul, in your spirit. You become a super rich individuals, and you become very happy in the things that you do. It's very, very hard. It's very, very difficult field of work. It's not easy. It's very challenging, but the rewards that you receive are fantastic. Now, if you want to make money, don't work in this sector. You will not succeed. But if you love for the sake of others, if you work for the goodness of others, if you want, because you want to serve God, this is the best field for you to be engaged and to really honestly have a very fruitful and happy life.
Thank you, sir, for sharing all your wonderful works. My question to you is, as peace builders, like you said, we do face a lot of challenges. So could you share with us any of your challenge that you faced and how did you overcome that challenge? How did you handle that challenge?
The challenge many times are coming out of misunderstanding of your motivation. Like they are saying, nobody is a prophet in his own land. So, for example, when I was working in Italy, I established a school together with the ILO, the International Labor Organization of the UN, with their quarter in Torino. The name of that institute was Global Exchange, in which I sponsor young leaders from Africa to come for 2 years and be part of my institute for training. So they learn administration, they learn management, they learn planning, they learn public relations, they learn networking, they are learning fundraising by grants and door-to-door fundraising, etc. And at one time, I did have 100 students in that institute. And what happened is, the challenge that I received, I was denounced by some Italians because I have all these black people in my institutes. And I've been investigated by the Secret Service of Italy. They called me twice to interrogate me, why I was doing that. And internationally, I was also investigated by the FBI because of my work in Bosnia and in other situations in East Europe. So I received this incredible challenge. They question my integrity, they question my motivation, they question why I was doing this. Because let's say for normality, when a peace building person or peace builder do things, is doing out of their normal way of life. So quite often people, they think you are crazy. You're out of your mind. You're not normal. You should work. You should find a good job, make good money for your family. I have 5 children. So people, they thought I was totally I was a nuts case. But even the government, even the establishment, they challenged me, but investigated me. But what was the final outcome? After that, the same Digos, the Secret Service, they came to my office after, always asked my opinion and my guidance in taking care of immigrants and immigrant issues, because they find out that what we were doing as an organization was real, was substantial, it was changing life of people. And not only that, it was changing relation between my nation and other nations. So that, for example, is one challenge. And then, of course, there are the individual challenge that you will face, like I mentioned. Your family may challenge you because you're taking a path. They will not bring money to your life. They will challenge you. They will confront you, say, you are wasting your time. It's not worth it. The world has been like this, always will be like this. This is always what they say. They don't believe that you will have the strength and the force and the capacity to make a change. When actually change can take place, when people take the bull by the horn and they dominate the challenge, and they have the force and the will and the capacity to make a change. So another challenge, many times you have to believe only in yourself. Despite of all the opposition, you have only to believe in yourself and persevere and go forward. So this is the first challenge you have to face, and you will face, if you take this path. You really need to believe strong, and credit, to give credit to yourself. Also, another point that comes to my mind, when you work for peace building, you always have to give the credit to who deserve the credit. Never take the credit of others for yourself. Always give the credit for those that work for that. That's very important. And there are many other challenges that you will face. For example, working in Africa, or when I was working in Bosnia or East Europe, you know, one fundamental challenge was the food. Different food, different water. It makes you sick when you work in other territories, in other culture. The cultural system is a challenge. You will face cultural shock. When I went to work in the United States, for example, I did have a cultural shock. Or in England, it was a cultural shock. So if you're going to work on international platform, you will be challenged by the cultural shock. They will challenge your criteria, your references. They will be under stress because each culture has different references, different point of views, different system, a different way of life. So you will face different challenge in different contexts, in different situations. But the challenge number one is within yourself. That's the challenge number one.
Thank you very much, Massimo sir. There are a few more questions. How do the youth contribute to peaceful and conducive environment? And then another one is, does lack of conflict means peace or continuous evolution of conflict? And its proper management is peace. On which aspect should we advocate? And then there's another one, maybe you can just combine. Is it possible to change the culture of the people? Why is there so much violence in Muslim countries?
Okay, let's start from the bottom. You know, I have Muslim friends since many, many years. We are entering now in a very sensitive topic because when we talk about faith is one issue. When we talk about religion is a different issue. Religion is connected to the establishments, to institution. When you have establishment and institutions, automatically you have that connected to power. When we talk about faith, that is individual. Your faith is your own. Faith is a private issue. Is your relation with your own God and set of values based upon your faith. That's why freedom of religion means faith is one of the fundamental freedom for a free society. So freedom of opinion and freedom of religion are two fundamental principles for all the other freedom to come after that. If you stop freedom of religion and freedom of opinion, you will start a dictatorship, a control of society. So somebody asked why there is so much violence in the Muslim world. Well, it depends which Islamic society you are referring to. For example, Muslims in India are a minority and they are persecuted. Muslims in China are a minority, they are about 84 million, and they are persecuted by the central government, the communist regime of China. If you go to Saudi Arabia, that's not the case because the Islamic faith is the predominant, is the only faith. If you go to Saudi Arabia with a cross at the airport, they will take away your cross. You cannot go around Saudi Arabia with a cross on your cloth or on your neck. That is out of law. So the violence that you're talking about, I think you're referring to radical Islamic individuals and groups. They're fomenting terrorism. And by the way, it's very interesting that the pandemic also, this slow down the terroristic attack around the world. There's a positive outcome, you know. Even terrorism slow down, you know. So the terrorists, they are afraid of the coronavirus. They are not afraid to kill themselves, some of them, but they're afraid of the corona. That's bizarre, but this is what is happening. So we are talking about radical Islam individuals. In the past, there were radical Christians as well. You know, with the Crusaders invaded the Middle East to conquer Jerusalem and then killing left and right people. You know, Charles the Great cut off the neck of people if there's no way saying, yes, I'm a Christian, for example. So radical Islam many times is connected to an ideological platform. So they connect Islam with Marxist-Leninism in most of the cases, or they connect Islam with the state power. Also, what is the difference between Islam and Christianity? The Islam, to express himself, needs a state, is a state religion. Christianity is not a state religion, it doesn't need a state, you know, to perform. Islam, really, the reference fundamental of Islam is a state. So the radicalization of many youth within Islam came out from their Islamic schools. When they radicalize the ideas, the concept, the theological concept, and they create an enemy. There is something, you know, many people that I talk to, they're Muslims, they don't like the liberty of a democratic system. They, for example, promote pornography and other forms of selling newspaper magazines, the pornographical magazine and things like that. They reject this. At the same time, they don't allow women to drive in their nations. So you can see our world is full of the extremist situations. We don't live in an ideal world. So why the violence within Islam? I think it's just a momentary situation due to social context and confrontation within Islam itself, or different position of what Islam should be. So I think it will pass in time. It will pass in time. Maybe it will take a long time, but I believe it's just a process. And it will pass and go, because it's just a phenomenon. You know, on the 9/11, I was there in New York. I saw the towers collapsing. It did have a major impact. And the truth of the matter is that after 9/11, the world changed. In the year 2000, everybody was celebrating the millennium of peace, the new millennium of peace, the golden age of peace. Those were the messages in 2000. 9/11 changed all that and initiated the polarizations of our world. So we may not face state-to-state, empire-to-empire conflict, but we are facing for sure the polarization of society. Today, the polarization is done on ideological ism. The ideological is are creating the polarization in our world. These in the United States, This is in Latin America. This is in Africa, in Europe, everywhere. People get polarized in different groups. The more progressive and the more conservatives, they polarize their position, and the center is becoming shrinked and less important. We need to reinforce the center. They are the mediator. The center is very unbalanced, it's not strong. We need a strong center, but we don't have leaders. Where are the leaders in our world today? Good leaders at all levels. Where are they? So young people, they feel quite lost, honestly speaking. Cross-border, everywhere. Young people, they need role models, references to look up to, say, well, if this guy did this, I can do that even better. Where are the role models? What is the music rock star or the K-pop from Korea? Those are the reference for the young people. What the heck? Where are the leaders? Where are the leaders for our young generations? We see young generation, they're getting weaker and weaker by the day. They are completely glued to the computers, to the smartphones. They're not engaging. They're not engaging. They don't read. They don't study. They want something now, quick, fast. They don't go deeper in things. So the young people, that are going to go in depth in issues, that they are engaged, they will take over. Those are the leaders of the future. Because the great majority of young people, they do not. They do not. So I think that out of these last two generations of youth, a new group of leaders is getting formed. Because they are young people, they get totally frustrated with the situation and they want to make a change. But they need to be engaged to make and to work for a lasting peace. You know, peace is like with democracy. There is no assurance that democracy will not be taken over by a dictator or by a dictatorship type of ideology. What assurance do we have that this will not happen? And for peace, it's the same. So if you want to maintain peace, we have to keep on nurturing peace in order to be lasting peace, to move forward, to be permanent peace. Look at the United States of America today with this looting and fighting and shooting, defunding the police, no law and order. I lived in America for 8 years. I never saw this phenomena. I was robbed twice in America. Where? In California. But nothing happened in New York or in Boston or in Chicago, Minneapolis, or in North Dakota, where I live, or in Atlanta or Miami. Nothing. I didn't even see conflict like you see in the TV movies or TV cop series on Netflix. Don't see anything on that stuff. But then suddenly, boom, the whole situation exploded. And people lost their freedom in some area of their country. People got afraid to go out in the street. They lost their freedom. Peace is exactly the same. If we do not protect peace, if we do not nurture peace, if we do not sustain peace, if we do not keep working for peace, peace will be attacked and we will lose peace.
Thank you very much, Massimo sir, for that wonderful answer. Anyone else who wants to ask question? Because I can read some of the people are saying here that Bishal is saying very, very effective and wonderful session. So they want to thank you for this opportunity. It was a very meaningful session. Thank you for the opportunity from our, from our participants here. So, and they say that today's session is full of learnings and motivation. Right? So they are really happy, and I'm also happy to be here. And yeah, amazing session from Abigail here. So, do you have any other questions? Okay, so I think everyone here is very happy to be attending this session. I don't think they have any questions. So, sir, would you like to wrap up before we end this session?
Well, thank you. Yes, thank you for the appreciation from the people. I hope my presentation did help you and help you with some new tools or references and ideas. And I'm always available, especially for young people. Working for young people has been my passion all of my life. When I was in Europe, I did run 20 to 24 projects a year, sometimes 2, 3 a month for young people. So young people also changed my life with a project in 1988, 89 in Italy. So I'm grateful to the youth because they brought new life to my life. So to close, I'm always available for any questions or any suggestion or any type of help that young people may need. So thank you very much for inviting me. And I hope that your workshop will move forward, with great success. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much on behalf of Global Peace Foundation Nepal. And all the participants here, I would like to express our deepest gratitude for having us and also for giving us your time. It is indeed insightful, and we have learned a lot. Okay, so everyone is saying here they have wonderful, very good feedback. So thank you very much once again, Massimo sir, and we hope to see you in the future again. Oh yes, okay.
One more point, if people will send me a report of this presentation, you can provide my email to them, or because if we put it on the chat, they will lost as you close this Zoom conference. For those interested, if they send me a report and a summary, whatever, about this presentation, then our chapter will provide a certificate for them, for those that they send the report. And our certificate has a legal value because we are registered in Brazil as an Institute of Education, and is a OCIP, means is a group of public utilities recognized by the federal government. And also our chapter individually has been recognized by ECOSOC of the United Nations. So our certificate has certain kind of value also for you, for your resumes and your career. So if you send a summary report or something, then my office will send you back. Please sign very well your name. We send you a certificate of appreciations for attending this lecture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will be sending all of you his email ad, so you can just send him, okay, the reflection or whatever you have learned today, because that's also very important for him to know what you have learned and also feedback, okay? So with this, I would like to end our session for today. Thank you once again, and also to all our participants for your active participation, and you have stayed with us, eh? So have a safe Bijaya Dashami, Dasain. I hope you'll have a safe and healthy Dasain. Be responsible. Okay, and so I'll see you on. I think our next session will be after the same, but please check your email regularly because I will be sending you your activity. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
With
you.
this,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Bye. Thank you so much, Massimo, sir. I'll keep in
Ciao, ciao.
touch. Ciao, ciao, ciao.